What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie The Brutalist. Here's a quick synopsis. Separated from his wife, Holocaust survivor Laszlo Toth, an Hungarian architect, makes his way to America, taking thankless jobs until Harrison Lee Van Buren, a rich patron, gives him a big opportunity. The film stars Adrien Brody, Guy Pearce, Felicity Jones, Joe Alwyn, Rafi Cassidy, Stacey Martin, Emma Laird, and Alessandro Nivola. Standout performances. The Brutalist is being viewed as a bit of a comeback for Adrien Brody, who first gained notoriety with a number of performances. His early significant work includes 2002's The Pianist, the film that saw him become the Best Actor Oscar winner ever to date. I just watched this for the first time. He gives such a moving performance. 2005's King Kong, a very ambitious remake from Lord of the Rings director Peter Jackson, where he plays playwright Jack Driscoll. This, to me, is Adrien Brody being a full-on movie star. 2006's Hollywoodland, where Brody plays a private eye looking into the death of George Reeves, the actor best known for playing Superman. It's a movie that's most well known for a Ben Affleck comeback, but Adrien Brody is really good in it. 2007's The Darjeeling Limited, his first of 5 films with writer-director Wes Anderson. To me, Adrien Brody is one of the actors who best understands the tone Anderson is going for in his movies. You might view this as a lesser Anderson movie. I just love spending an entire movie with the trio of Brody, Jason Schwartzman, and Owen Wilson. And finally, 2008's The Brothers Bloom, where Brody plays a con man who lives under his brother's shadow and wants to quit. This, to me, is the most underrated performance of Brody's entire career. He makes the movie work. You feel real sadness with his character until Rachel Weisz's Penelope enters the picture. And while Brody's latter film work might not be as impressive to some, he's done some great acting work on television recently. In Peaky Blinders, where he's really going for it, especially with the accent. Succession, where he shared great scenes with both Jeremy Strong and Brian Cox, and Winning Time, where Brody played legendary basketball coach Pat Riley. I want to be very clear with this point. The Brutalist isn't a return to Adrien Brody being a good actor. He's always been that. It's a return for him being a leading man. He's become more of a scene stealer in 2011's Midnight in Paris, where he plays the famed artist Salvador Dali, 2014's The Grand Budapest Hotel, playing the villain in that star-studded film, 2021's The French Dispatch, which is my favorite of his performances in a Wes Anderson movie where he plays an art dealer, See How They Run, where he plays an actor, Blonde, where he plays famed playwright Arthur Miller, both in 2022, and Asteroid City in 2023, where Brody plays a director. As you can see, Adrien Brody does some of his best acting work playing a creative person working in the arts. He plays these characters in a way that's not pretentious. Let's get into the performance of the hour. Brody in The Brutalist plays architect Laszlo Toth, who when he first gets to America only has getting his wife back to him on his mind, and then later on gets swept up in his own work and ambition. And he's not an architect for fame or fortune. He's in it for the creative control. Brody is in nearly every scene and brilliantly plays the up and down nature of the character. And what I loved most about the performance is, even though it's a dramatic role, Brody was able to bring real levity. Almost every time I laughed was during one of his lines. Some may be selling you on this idea that Brody has only been great in The Pianist and The Brutalist, and that is simply not the case. I've always been a fan, and am glad he's once again getting his due. Guy Pearce is similarly an actor who got a lot of praise for his earlier work on screen, mainly 2 movies, the late Curtis Hanson's LA Confidential in 1997, which was also a breakout for Russell Crowe, and Christopher Nolan's Memento in 2000. Pearce has been a consistent presence in movies. He had supporting roles in The Hurt Locker and The King's Speech, 2 films that won Best Picture in back-to-back years, 2010 and 11. He's really good in blockbusters. Iron Man 3, where he's a great villain, and Prometheus, where he's Peter Weyland, the founder of Weyland Corporation, and has given what I believe to be overlooked performances in movies made by 2 Australian filmmakers, John Hill Hillcoat and David Michaud. With Hillcoat, Pearce starred in The Proposition in 2005, a great revenge western, The Road in 2009, an adaptation of the Cormac McCarthy novel, and Lawless in 2012, a movie with a stacked cast. Pearce really goes for it in this, and his scenes with Tom Hardy are electric, and for Michaud, he starred in Animal Kingdom in 2010, a terrific crime movie about a family of criminals, and The Rover in 2014, a film that might just be the closest thing to Mad Max. The dynamic between Pearce and Robert Pattinson makes that movie special. In The Brutalist, Pearce plays Harrison Van Buren, who is a complicated figure to say the least. He makes an explosive entrance in the movie, and then becomes interested in Laszlo and his work. I like how there is a straightforwardness with the character, but also there's some surprising elements to him as well, and it's hard not to look at him as a statement about modern wealthy people as well. It's an example of how these loud voices have been in power for a long time now. I just really like the fact that we once again are talking about actors like Adrien Brody and Guy Pearce in the culture. They've always been super consistent. Sometimes they've been overlooked, but right now they are having a moment, and I, for one, am enjoying that. Actress Felicity Jones was nominated for an Oscar for The Theory of Everything and has since starred in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, the best standalone Star Wars project, and On the Basis of Sex, where she played Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She should have gotten another Oscar nomination for that. She has the hardest role in The Brutalist as Erzsébet, Laszlo's wife. I say that because she's not in the first half of the film, a movie that already has a lot of momentum. I thought she was brilliant in the film. She has legit chemistry with Brody and has some of the best scenes of the movie with Guy Pearce. And finally, I really like the choices Joe Alwyn has made as an actor. Clearly, he wants to play parts in director-driven films. Yorgos Lanthimos is The Favorite and Kinds of Kindness, Joanna Hoggs, The Souvenir Part 2, Claire Denis stars at Noon, Lena Dunham's Catherine Called Birdie. Most of these roles are supporting, and it's admirable to me that he would rather play any part in a good film than play the lead in a lesser one, which I have to think he's been offered the opportunity to do so. In Brady Corbet's The Brutalist, he plays Harry Van Buren, who is in business with his father. He's very spoiled and power-hungry. Alwyn was the perfect choice to play the character, hiding his darkness by being charming. Writer-director Brady Corbet is getting a lot of praise for The Brutalist, and I have to tell you, I think he should have been praised for his first two movies as well. The first being The Childhood of a Leader, one of the most assured directing debuts I've ever seen. There's a few scenes with Robert Pattinson, including the daring ending. His second film, Vox Lux, received mixed reviews. I love it. Raffi Cassidy, who's also in The Brutalist, is beyond great in that film. Jude Law and Natalie Portman are making strong choices that I enjoy. If you watch those movies, I think the commonality with The Brutalist is all three films are visually stunning and all three are super intense, and I mean that in a good way. They demand your attention, and all three films are meant to make you think afterwards, which I think is something movies should be going for. Whether the movies give you a positive or negative reaction, they warrant a reaction. I also want to shout out the co-writer of the film, Mona Fassvold, who also co-wrote with Corbet on A Childhood of a Leader and Vox Lux. She's also a director in her own right. I loved her last film, The World to Come, starring Vanessa Kirby, Catherine Waterston, Christopher Abbott, and Casey Affleck. Not to get hyperbolic, I just think The Brutalist is the most profound movie I've seen about an immigrant coming to America, and I say that because the movie to me avoids tropes and stereotypes and goes in a surprising number of directions. There's a few scenes in particular that stand out. One is where Alwyn's Harry tells Laszlo, "We tolerate you." The other is where Laszlo is having a breakdown on a car ride and confides to his wife that people don't want them there. Those to me are just two small moments that tell you everything you need to know about this movie and what it's saying about its character and what they're going through. I think the movie is extreme in so many ways that I find to be great, but I also find the movie to be brilliantly subtle in that it doesn't throw its ideas in your face. It tells you how it feels about its characters without being blatantly obvious. Sometimes I think when a movie deals with a subject matter like this, it almost turns into melodrama, and I never found that to be the case with The Brutalist. The movie is getting a lot of acclaim and also some backlash. As for that backlash, some of it I understand, some of it I don't. It seems like every time there's a really long movie, we have this silly debate over which half of the movie was better. I heard it after Oppenheimer, and I'm hearing it even more with The Brutalist. And my thing is, if I liked a movie, I like the whole movie. I find it odd to say I like 1 hour of it and not the other. I look at these things as a whole, and as a whole, I love the way The Brutalist is structured. There's real intention behind every scene. There's a point to what the filmmaker is doing with the movie. Every moment serves a purpose, and so does every character in the film. Like I said before, I think the ideas in the movie are understated. I've heard some people say that the movie is overstated. I don't feel that way. I guess it's just a difference of opinions. Getting back to the structure of the movie for a second, I of course want to talk about the ending of the movie, but I don't want to spoil. I just like how it wasn't obvious where the movie was going. It came out of nowhere for me in the best way possible. One thing that I don't think is getting talked about enough is there was once going to be an iteration of this movie that had a very different cast that included Joel Edgerton, Mark Rylance, Marion Cotillard, Vanessa Kirby, and Sebastian Stan. Not gonna lie, that's an interesting group of actors, but I do think we landed in the best case scenario. I couldn't imagine anyone else playing Laszlo other than Adrien Brody. Oscars, let's get right into it. I would not be surprised at all to see this movie get Best Picture. The filmmaking is impressive. The performances are memorable. The one way I see The Brutalist winning Best Picture is if it wins in 2 of the 3 acting performances. If Adrien Brody, Guy Pearce, or Felicity Jones wins, this movie is winning. And I don't know how to feel about Best Actor. I see all the momentum going towards Timothée Chalamet for A Complete Unknown, but Adrien Brody is undeniable in The Brutalist. And as for Guy Pearce, he doesn't really have a chance because Kieran Culkin is going to win for A Real Pain. I think the big upset would be Felicity Jones winning. I think Zoe Saldana is going to have a tough time now with everything going on with the Amelia Perez campaign that I don't really want to get into whatsoever. But if Felicity Jones wins and Adrien Brody wins, this movie is going to win Best Picture. That's my prediction anyway. Best Director is going to come down between Brady Corbet and Sean Baker. Sean Baker for Anora, a movie that I loved. I talked about it on this very podcast last week. I would not be surprised to see Baker take home that award, but I also see everyone talking about what Corbet did with this movie and how he did it with a tight budget, the performances that he got, the screenplay that he wrote. It just seems like Brady Corbet is going to ultimately end up taking home this award. The last thing I'll say about the Oscars is even though Guy Pearce does not have a chance of winning, it's always great to see an actor like that finally get an Oscar nomination. It's long overdue, but The Brutalist is a brilliant choice for that nomination. I guess it's impossible not to talk about this movie and not touch on the AI controversy. Supposedly, they enhanced Adrien Brody's Hungarian accent with AI. They also did some other stuff with the cinematography involving AI. I don't care whatsoever about AI enhancing a movie if the movie ends up being a very good product, which The Brutalist is. That's all I really have to say about it. Brady Corbet created The Brutalist. As long as he's the one who came up with the movie entirely, I'm not mad about it, unless I find out later that it was written entirely by AI, which it wasn't. So I don't really understand the controversy. Adrien Brody gave a brilliant, beautiful performance in The Brutalist. I don't see what we're all worked up about. Some people just get mad whenever they hear the word AI. I just think it would be a ridiculous reason not to give this movie Best Picture. If you feel like The Brutalist is the best movie of the year, then give The Brutalist the Best Movie of the Year award, which the Oscars could do, giving it Best Picture. Give it Best Picture if you think it's Best Picture. Don't let a silly controversy that's not really even a controversy get in the way. Box office so far, The Brutalist has made over $18 million at the box office, which isn't super impressive, but the movie did only cost about $10 million, which I think is super impressive that a movie that looks this good costs so little. Yes, I am one of those people who say, how are they making movies that cost $250 million that look like absolute garbage? Like, how did we get here as a society, and how is it possible that Brady Corbet is able to make a movie that looks as good as The Brutalist with the budget he's been given? I mean, how did we get here? Is it just that Brady Corbet cares about the art of making movies more so than the studio system? I mean, that's what it feels like. You watch a movie like The Brutalist and you go, wow, the studios should just be giving Brady Corbet a boatload of money to make whatever he wants. The word that this comes down to is passion. Brady Corbet clearly had passion for what he was doing. This movie was years in the making, and most of these big budget blockbuster sequels, remakes, whatever you want to call them, don't have that passion. They don't care about the look of the movie. They don't care about the screenplay of the movie. They don't really care about the performances. All they care about is getting big movie stars and selling their products. And that's how we are where we are. I say all that, and yet there's still hope for the studio system if they just let a director carry out their vision for the movies they are making. I mean, look at what happened with Universal with Oppenheimer and Christopher Nolan, and Warner Brothers with Greta Gerwig and Barbie. Those studios let those directors make the movies they wanted to make, and they were the biggest hits we've seen in forever. Warner Brothers has a new Paul Thomas Anderson movie coming starring Leonardo DiCaprio. I think that movie is going to do well. It's going to be the type of movie you're going to want to make. And Universal is making Christopher Nolan's next film, The Odyssey, which already has a stacked cast that includes Tom Holland, Robert Pattinson, Zendaya, and Matt Damon. Actors want to be in these kinds of movies. Actors want to be in movies like The Brutalist. Adrien Brody clearly wanted to be in a movie filled with passion like The Brutalist that was saying something about the world he's living in, both in the past and where we are right now. Yes, I'll be perfectly fine if Brady Corbet and Sean Baker continue to make indie films, but I just think a studio should go to both of them and say, make whatever movie you want to make. I mean, if Brady Corbet can make The Brutalist for under $10 million, could you imagine what he could do with a $50 million budget? My point is, the movies that are living on in the culture are the ones made by one director who has a clear vision. Those are the movies that are resonating with people, and it's why currently The Brutalist is being celebrated. Closing statement. I like prestige movies that are high art and are also entertaining, and that's what The Brutalist is. It's a movie with a lot of big ideas mixed in with enough plot to keep you excited. People are throwing around the word epic when it comes to the film, and that's perfectly apt. It's not the super long runtime that will be remembered. It's not the intermission that everyone's talking about that will be remembered. It's the movie itself. It's what the movie is saying about the immigrant experience in America, and it's about the performances given by Adrien Brody, Felicity Jones, Guy Pearce, and Joe Alwyn. And about the magnificent look of the movie. I think the movie is also going to win Best Cinematography. You're not going to find a better looking 2024 movie than The Brutalist. Lo Crawley, who also shot The Childhood of a Leader and Vox Lux, did stellar work. And it feels like that one shot of the Statue of Liberty is already becoming iconic. And I believe we're close to the film entering that realm as well. And part of me doesn't like saying that because I don't want to get swept up in the moment and act like this movie is going to live on when I really don't know the answer to that yet. It just feels like a movie that is, because it's a big, grand spectacle and a type of movie that you don't see every day. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I highly recommend you check out Brady Corbet's The Brutalist. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about John Crowley's We Live in Time, starring Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh. So tune into that and please rate, review, and subscribe.